We welcome you into the 5-pack on this Friday. You are not allowed to begin your holiday weekend until you hear from us here on the Better Sports Network. Kyle Elfrink with you on a Friday. Hope all is going well. Producer Ernie Acosta helping us out as we get you set for the weekend to come with things that will matter to you, but certainly with things that matter right now. We also have our final pack break of the week. I thought, hey, June is about to become July. Here we are on the final day of June. When July hits, we start getting serious about football. So today on the 5-pack, got a little football for you. 1991 score pinnacle. Now, back in 1991, there was regular score football, but then they upgraded to pinnacle. And another thing going on here, actually two things. Pinnacle actually stuck around for quite a long time. And Pinnacle was kind of at the forefront of the insert craze, which has only exploded in the last 10 years or so. Throughout the 90s into the early 2000s, Pinnacle was huge. All sorts of inserts. Like I said, they kind of created the excitement, the fervor, if you will, for inserts. The other thing with Pinnacle that you will notice here, see that number at the bottom? See that 12 cards per pack? That was very different in 1991. Like yesterday, we were opening a pack from 1988, and I think it was 15 cards. And then Upper Deck came out. They dropped it like 14. And then Fleer Ultra came out. They said 14. And Top Stadium Club dropped 12. And then Pinnacle came with 12. And slowly but surely, we've arrived at a point in 2023 where the packs are like 5 cards for $20 or whatever it is. So Pinnacle is kind of at the fore of that, of shrinking the wax packs, or the foil packs in this case, that you would get. Anyway, at the end of the show, or near the end of the show, we will go through this pack. As always, wish me luck as I try to rip this foil pack open. There are some inserts that we can get. I shouldn't say inserts, subsets that we can get. No inserts, but certainly some subsets that we can get in this Fleer football set. So we'll get to that coming up in just a bit. Want to begin, though, with our 5 things that do matter indeed on this Friday. That's why you're here, right? Maybe you were out catching Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny last night on night 1, so you didn't catch all the stuff that was going on in the sports world. Fear not. I'm here to help you. That's what we do on the 5-pack. Let us begin with a little NBA news. Philadelphia 76ers and James Harden set to part. Yes, indeed. James Harden, who just opted in to a $36 million option. Now he's on the trade market. And it turns out that James Harden has not been very happy with the 76ers organization, just like he is there. That may have been the point, this photo here of James Harden, when he said, wait a second, man, I just took a $14 million pay cut to help you build the team around me and Joel Embiid. And now you're not going to give me any more money? You're not going to give me a new contract? I didn't know this till I was reading up on it. Joel Embiid was entitled to $45 million this past year with Philadelphia. And he, in effect, renegotiated a contract that would only pay him $30 million. And all that money was going to go to help to build the 76ers a team. Well, we know how it lasted. They were pretty good in the regular season. They got knocked out by the Boston Celtics. And now they're moving on. And James Harden is pretty upset because although he opted into this 1-year option, James Harden is saying, wait a second. I want a 4-year deal, a 5-year deal. I want this big payday right now. And Philadelphia's nah. In fact, James, if you don't want to opt in, you can go into free agency and we'll let you walk. Well, Harden said, no, I'm not doing that. Not doing that. I'm going to opt in. I'm going to put you on the hook for $36 million. And then I'm going to tell you, why don't you trade me? And if you don't trade me, says James Harden, well, then I'm going to make your life miserable. Just like I did in Houston, just like I did in Brooklyn, just like all NBA superstars seem to do when they're not interested in sticking around. They pout. They make life miserable. And so right now we're sitting here, And the 76ers are kind of caught. Sure, they can keep James Harden, who, it's worth noting, James Harden still scored over 21 points a game last year. James Harden led the NBA in assists last season. I think his slash line was 21, 11, and 6. He was an all-star again. He's a former MVP. I think he's made the all-star game 10 times. Like, he can still do it. James Harden can still play. Is he a top 5, top 10 superstar? Probably not. But top 25? Probably so. Top 20 even. You could make that argument. But he, in effect, has told the 76ers, yeah, I'll opt in at $36 million, but I want to be traded. So who's interested in James Harden? Well, I would suggest maybe 3 or 4 teams. And maybe the field goal is bigger. I mean, NBA free agency is going to start up later today. Maybe teams miss out on teams. But if you look at teams that could logically fit with James Harden, the biggest one, the one that everybody's talking about, is the LA Clippers. And it sounds like if that trade were to occur, the LA Clippers would not be giving up Kawhi Leonard or Paul George. In effect, they would have their big three there in LA. Pretty decent big three. You certainly got some scoring there with Leonard, George, and Harden. Like, who in the hell do you guard on the perimeter? You can't guard all those guys. So that would be something. I don't know if it leads to a title. But the Clippers sound like the most logical spot. There's an outside shot of Miami. Now, when you think about the very famed Heat culture, I don't know if James Harden really fits in with that. So that might be an issue. The Rockets were an early leader, but it sounds like the Rockets aren't really interested in remarrying James Harden. I think the Rockets have like over $60 million in cap space, so they could absolutely fit James Harden. But it kind of sounds like, according to reporting, they're not interested in bringing in James Harden. So the Clippers appear to be the likely destination. Now, you can get odds on this. If you go over to the DraftKings Sportsbook right now, the Clippers are your favorite. Where James Harden will play his next minute in the NBA, Clippers are minus 2,000. Or, excuse me, 200 on that front. Minus 200. Now, Philly's actually number 2. It's plus 500. Houston, 550. The Knicks are at 650. And Miami's actually at 800. Philadelphia, 500, second best bet. Now, if that happens, Philadelphia won't be very excited about that occurring. Because, again, we saw this, what was that, 4 years ago when James Harden was stuck in Houston? And, like, he stopped showing up. He didn't go to practice. And Houston, in effect, had to give him away to Brooklyn. Philadelphia don't want to get caught in that situation. They want to turn James Harden maybe into some help right now. We shall see. As noted, free agency is beginning tonight. I'll talk about that in the 5 things that will matter. But James Harden may be the biggest name that's available. And if it's not him, maybe it's Dame Lillard with Portland. The free agent pool, which I'll talk about, is not all that great getting into this season. But James Harden's certainly still a very good player, and it sounds like he's available. Sounds like Clippers and the Rockets working on something. Let's move to baseball for item number 2 of our 5 things that will matter. And I got to talk about the San Diego Padres. My goodness. I was talking with a friend the other night. I was at the ball game, hanging out with some buddies, and we were watching the scoreboard, and there it was, the Padres getting beat again. And it's like, man, that team must just be full of dogs. How is that team so bad? Why are they struggling so much? And a lot of times you get, injuries. They've had nothing crazy on the injury front. They can't blame injuries. They're just not playing. And they are not playing well at all right now. In fact, as we sit here on this Friday, San Diego Padres, who for many were like the pick in the National League West ahead of the Dodgers. I liked the Padres over the Dodgers. Now, it turns out we all miss the Arizona Diamondbacks, but I was one of those guys who said, yeah, give me San Diego over Los Angeles. I'm way off. Everybody's way off. Padres right now are like struggling to even get involved in the playoff discussion. They have lost 5 straight games. 2 of those 5 were to the Nationals. And then over the last 3 days, they're taking on Pittsburgh and they lose all 3. Yesterday, they were up 4-0 against the Pittsburgh Pirates, and they blew it. Let's take a look.
Davis And a line drive left field. Henry Davis has another hit. McCutcheon going to be waved home. He will score, and Henry Davis keeps on hitting. Pirates trail 4-2. Huge at bat for Sawinski against a lefty. And a little dribbler up the line. It is a fair ball. Oh, it goes past first. The Pirates are going to tie the game. Sawinski at second. How about that play?
Here's Henry Davis. RBI single his last time up. He's 2 out of 3 today.
Little flare to right field. Henry Davis is going to give the Pirates the lead. Unbelievable. 5-4. Henry Davis, his third hit. 5-4 in the 7th.
Pirates hold on for that 5-4 victory, surviving not only the Padres, but also the smoke in the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area. They actually had to delay that game for like a half hour, I think, as they waited for the smoke to dissipate from the Canadian wildfires. AT&T Sportsnet with the footage there. As for the Padres, again, 5 in a row. They're 37-44. If you look at the NL West standings right now, this Padres team is 10.5 games out in the NL West. And as usual, say, what about the wild card, right? Wild card. They're 8 games out in the wild card. In effect, the Padres are going through the exact same thing the New York Mets are going through. We talked about the Mets yesterday. Steve Cohen, the owner, visiting with the media on Wednesday and saying, hey, it's bad. I don't know what to say. And the next month is going to dictate what we do. Padres are going through the same exact thing. And they've spent a lot of money, gobs of money. And I was wondering today, I mean, I'm looking at these odds and I'm looking at the games back. And again, we're a month away from the trading deadline. If you look at the Padres roster, Josh Hader, Blake Snell, Nick Martinez, Michael Wacha, Gary Sanchez, Rougned Odor, all of those guys are set to be free agents. If I'm the Padres in a month from now, if I am anything more than 5 games out of the wild card, which right now they're 8, all of these guys are gone. And I'll tell you another thing. The idea of trading Juan Soto. I don't think it's likely, but here's the situation. Soto's a free agent after next season, after 2024. Now, it was just a year ago that the Padres gave up the farm to bring in Juan Soto. And part of the reason they had to give up so much is because they had him for the next 2.5 years. Well, a year into this experiment, it ain't working. Juan Soto's doing fine. Juan Soto's still a star, but it ain't working for the Padres. They're a worse team right now. Additionally, Manny Machado is making a ton of money. Fernando Tatis Jr. is making a ton of money. Yu Darvish is making a ton of money. They have a load of money locked up in like Xander Bogaerts in like 4 guys. Can they really add a 5th guy in Juan Soto? Can they add that 5th guy when it hasn't worked with that 5th guy? So if I'm the Padres and I've depleted my farm system over the last 3 years because they have been very aggressive. You know, they traded for Josh Hader. They traded for Juan Soto. They made a lot of other trades to bring in some help. If you're the Padres, your farm system's been wiped out. It ain't working with Juan Soto. Are you really going to re-sign him? You're going to give Juan Soto $450 million when you've already given that to Bogaerts and Tatis and Machado, when you've extended Yu Darvish? I don't think you are. No one's talking about this, but we're a month from the deadline. If the Padres continue to circle the drain, Juan Soto should be on that market. And I mentioned all the other soon-to-be free agents. All of those guys, especially a guy like Josh Hader, you flip him a year after you just brought him in. So it's bad for the Padres. Tonight, they are in Cincinnati. It's an early start in the Queen City. I think it's 5:10 Eastern tonight. Seth Lugo is going for the Padres. He's up against Graham Ashcraft of the Reds. Speaking of Ohio, let's talk about that other team in Ohio, the Cleveland Guardians. While nobody was paying attention, because why would you pay attention to the AL Central? The Guardians got back into first place. In fact, as we speak on this Friday, the Guardians are tied for first place with the Minnesota Twins. We'll talk a little more about the AL Central here in a second, but I want to go to yesterday's game because yesterday's game, which the Guardians actually lost in extra innings, it had a moment in extra innings, a moment that I cannot recall seeing in baseball. For me, Now, I'm sure some of you out there maybe can recall a moment, but let me set the scene. Tie game, extra innings, runner at third. When was the last time? Think to yourself, when was the last time that in that situation, extra innings, tie game, you saw this play occur?
The 2-strike pitch. Here comes Ramirez. Throw to the plate high. Head first slide out at the plate. Jose waves to the dugout, says challenge it. How about that? Jose Ramirez trying to steal home plate. He says he got the hand in before the tag of Perez. And here comes acting manager DeMarlo Hale. A daring move by Jose Ramirez.
Daring indeed. Now, they called him out. They got it right. You saw the replay there. He was safe. Now, I wanted to bring that up because of what's going on in baseball. Like I said, you don't see that, do you? And you're not going to see it at the next extra inning game. It's very rare. But this, again, speaks to what's going on in baseball this year. And I wanted to talk about this today because we are almost exactly at the halfway point of the season for everybody. Everybody's between like 78 and 81 games. By the end of the weekend, we'll be at the official halfway point of Major League Baseball. So let's check those stolen base numbers. Because again, this is a part of a game that before last year, you probably don't, or before this year, you don't see that play that you just saw from Jose Ramirez. This is a part of baseball that I believe has helped baseball a ton, bringing back the stolen base. Here are the numbers. And again, halfway through the season, last year we had 2,486 stolen bases in baseball. Right now, our pace is 3,500. We're about 1,000, more than 1,000 extra stolen bases this year. Last year, we had 4 teams who had more than 105 stolen bases in the 2022 season. This year, we are on pace for 18 teams who are going to have more than 105 stolen bases. Cleveland, you just saw Jose Ramirez there. Last season, 119 steals. They were one of the teams that ran. Interestingly enough, they're doing the same thing this year, but they're at the same pace. Everybody else in baseball has embraced and grown with the steal. Cleveland, not so much. Now, they do lose yesterday, but they do give us that exciting moment. And did want to point out Jose Ramirez. Check out Jose Ramirez leading up to the All-Star break. And he does this about once every season where he just goes bonkers. And right now he's going bonkers. Jose Ramirez did not have a great first half. He'll probably rep the Guardians at the All-Star game in Seattle. He's had a good season, just not his usual standards. But look at this run over the last 3 weeks. And like I said, there is this moment seemingly everywhere here where Jose Ramirez tells his teammates, get on my back. I'm going to carry you. And right now, that's what's going on. I mentioned tied for first place with Minnesota. For the most part, Minnesota's been sitting in first place all season long. But the Twins just have not been able to get any momentum to separate themselves from the Guardians, who had a lot of injuries. The Guardians weren't hitting the baseball at all for the first 2 months. The Guardians are in Chicago this weekend, taking on the Cubs. Game 1 is this afternoon at 2:20. Minnesota is going to be in Baltimore this weekend. They play later tonight at 7:05. Current AL Central odds. Current odds. Minnesota is your favorite over at DraftKings, minus 130. Cleveland is the number 2 pick at plus 160. Okay, let's move to item number 4 of our 5 things that do matter. Speaking of the All-Star game, the All-Star starters were announced yesterday. 9 teams are represented with the 18 starting players. 4 of them are from Texas. 8 of them are first-time starters. And I said this on yesterday's show. Let's start, I think, with the American League here. Said this on yesterday's show. The vote looks pretty good. It's not bad. Ohtani, Heim, Diaz, Simeon, Young, Seager, Arozarena, Trout, and Judge. Now, I said there were a couple I disagree with. We'll have to see if Aaron Judge is even going to play in this thing. I doubt he does, but he is elected as an all-star starter. So the American League looks fine. We got the National League here. Said it yesterday. I'll say it again. National League looks pretty good too. JD Martinez is your DH, then Murphy, Freeman, Arise, Arenado, Arcia, Corbin Carroll, Acuna, and Betts. It's hard to argue with any of those in the National League, especially as you got down to the final two. So these 18 starters, legit. Now the fun begins. Try to build a lineup. With those. How would you set up these lineups in the NL and AL? That's a fun parlor game. And hey, we're still one game in Seattle. It's coming up on July 11th. We'll probably not have Judge. There might be some other changes there. Did want to point out Mike Trout, who I said yesterday, Mike Trout would not get my vote. I would give a vote to Adolis Garcia over Mike Trout. But again, Mike Trout's fine. I'm not going to sit here and moan about Mike Trout making the All-Star game and being a starter. What is notable is that Mike Trout is now just the fourth player in All-Star game history to make 10 All-Star game starts and do at least 10 with the same team. So this was his 10th All-Star start coming up for Mike Trout. There are only 3 other baseball players in the history of the game that have made 10 or more starts in the All-Star game and done them all with a single team. It's a fun little trivia question for you and your friends at the bar. I'll tell you the other 3. Ken Griffey Jr., he did 10 with the Mariners. George Brett did 11 with the Kansas City Royals. And blowing everybody out of the water, Cal Ripken Jr. with 17 All-Star starts, all of them the Baltimore Orioles. Pitchers and reserves will be announced on Sunday. I think it's 5:30 Eastern. Coming up on Sunday evening, ESPN will have the live announcement. One thing to note there, I said the names Josh Young and Corbin Carroll. Both those guys were elected into the All-Star game. If both guys are in there, and probably will be, if they avoid injury, Young and Corbin Carroll, it will be the first time in All-Star game history, the first time ever, that a rookie from the AL and a rookie from the NL have made the respective starting lineups. That's stunning. Crazy. And a lot of that has to do with voting. So often, voting goes in the direction of players that voters know. And so even a great rookie, they may not be well known enough. Or maybe they weren't expected to be great, so there was so little hype. Like Josh Young, full credit to the Texas Rangers home base, the fans. That is all Texas going out to vote. And again, he probably deserves it. Maybe you could make the case for Matt Chapman and maybe Jose Ramirez or a couple of others. But it's not a mistake to have Josh Young in this game. That's on the Rangers fans. They were the guys and the girls and the voters who got Josh Young into this game. Corbin Carroll's just been great, and he had some hype coming into the year. But amazing to think that of all these All-Star games, we have never had a year where the AL and the NL featured rookie starters. We're going to have that this year in Seattle. Again, July 11th for that game. Finally, our 5th item that matters. We told you yesterday about the NFL gambling suspensions. Well, those came out yesterday, mostly guys that you don't know, unless you're like a Colts fan or something. But we had another suspension that had nothing to do with gambling yesterday. It was kind of an old-fashioned suspension, a PED suspension for Cam Robinson. Cam Robinson is the left tackle for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's a good one. Makes a lot of money, relatively young. I think he's like 27 years old. So he is a very important piece to the Jaguars puzzle. He has been suspended 4 games for PED usage. Now, I was looking up the Jacksonville schedule, and I got to say, if there is a 4-game run to be suspended at this season, it's this one. It's the first 4 games of the year. Jacksonville's schedule, it does have Kansas City, so that'll be difficult. But the other 3 opponents that Cam Robinson will not be out there to face are Houston, Indianapolis, and Atlanta. Houston and Indy are not expected to be playoff teams. Atlanta, because they're in the NFC South, could be a playoff team, but I think that is a home game for Jacksonville. So again, you never want to lose your left tackle for any amount of time. But if you had to choose 4 games, these might be the 4 to choose it on. By the way, Robinson will not only miss the 4 games, but he will lose out on over $3.5 million in salary. Got me thinking about the odds for Jacksonville this year. They are minus 165 to win the AFC South. Now, they would be my pick. Minus 165, not bad odds. But again, at this point, if you're throwing money down on the futures market, you're not looking at minus 165. You're looking at the pluses. So just want to give you Jacksonville minus 165. Makes sense. Minus 150 for over 9.5 wins. I think that is not a good deal. For a team that won 9 games last season, for a team that figures to have a little more of a difficult schedule this year, and for a team that is still very young and still trying to learn how to win, I thought that was a little rich, minus 150 to go over 9.5 victories. And then I thought this one was pretty high too, minus 195 to make the playoffs. Now, again, they're minus 165 to win the division. You can obviously make the playoffs by not winning the division, but do you really think the AFC South is giving us 2 teams? So minus 195 to make the playoffs. And hey, the Jaguars are good. They're exciting. They have Calvin Ridley back. They have Trevor Lawrence, like Etienne, all these guys. It's an exciting offense. It's a pretty good defense too. But those numbers seemed a little overamped, I thought. Jacksonville is kind of the AFC's version of the Detroit Lions this season. You know, everybody's excited about Detroit. I think in the AFC, that team is certainly Jacksonville, if it's not the Jets and Aaron Rodgers. Okay, those are your 5 things that matter at this very moment. We'll take a quick time out here. When we come back on the 5-pack, it's the 5 things that will matter. Let me warn you, if you're somebody who gets jealous of people making a lot of money while you don't, you're not going to want to hang around this weekend, because there is going to be money getting thrown around this weekend. I'll explain coming up next on the 5-pack on BSN.
Most intriguing storyline is going to have to be the most intriguing player out of this bunch, and that's going to be Kyrie Irving, dynamic, skillful basketball player, right? But you know what comes along with him. Now, you get him in the right spot, the right situation, he can be fantastic. But about 2 weeks into the season, he'll take 2 weeks off, and you know the Kyrie Irving thing will start again, and you know he's the smartest guy in the room, and this, that, and the third. So his situation with the Dallas Mavericks and where he potentially ends up is the most intriguing. I think the players who can make the biggest impact on a different team would be Chris Middleton and Fred VanVleet. But those are going to be more expensive players. But those 2 guys can probably help somebody else get to the next level. But as far as intrigue, it's Kyrie Irving, because you never know what Son is going to do.
Welcome me back to the 5-pack here on BSN. Corey Parson there, part of A Better Morning, which you can catch each and every weekday morning right here on the Better Sports Network. That starts up at 8 a.m. Speaking of the schedule, I am out of here at 1 o'clock, about a half hour from now. Quick Out Fantasy Football, Howard Bender, Andrew Cooper, they come your way for a couple of hours in the Fantasy Football Game Show with Front Yard Fantasy at 3 o'clock. Into the evening, Dan Servidideo gets you rolling with Better Sports Betting. That's at 4, and then we'll get you set for the DFS night, DFS Playbook at 5 o'clock Eastern right here on BSN. As we continue rolling along on this edition of the 5-pack, we remind you that coming up in about 10 to 15 minutes, for the first time ever here on the 5-pack, we will open up a 12-pack of Pinnacle Score football cards from 1991. In terms of what these cards look like, I did not recall, so I had to look it up today, and I obviously haven't opened the pack. But this black motif, it is really repeated throughout the set. There's a lot of just blank space. You'll understand what I'm talking about when I show it to you. But there's a lot of blank space in these Score Pinnacle cards coming up. So we'll have that for you in just a few on BSN. Let's now get to our 5 things that will matter as we keep things on cruise control for this Friday. And we start with number 1. I warned you before the timeout that this is a weekend to spend money, and it has nothing to do with taking your kids to the fireworks store. Nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with later today, 6 o'clock Eastern, NBA free agency begins. Yes, indeed, money will be spent, even though the free agent pool is not all that great. Now, James Harden is not officially a free agent, but he's going to be on the market. You see some of the other guys there, Kyrie Irving, Fred VanVleet, Austin Reeves with the Lakers, obviously Draymond Green. This is not a great class of free agents. not a stupendous class. There are names, yes. Like I said, Kyrie Irving, Fred VanVleet, probably throw Cam Johnson from Brooklyn, D'Angelo Russell with the Lakers. Chris Middleton's a free agent. Now, in the case of Middleton and even the Draymond Green, the expectation is those guys probably just find a new way of returning to their club. In other words, they sign a new contract that's a little more cap friendly. That's the expectation. Now, you could see a surprise team kind of swoop in and say, hey, we need Draymond Green. A lot of people thought that Sacramento may be that team for Draymond Green. The Kings yesterday gave Harrison Barnes a big contract extension, 3 years, $54 million. I don't want to say that takes the Kings out of the Draymond Green experiment or possibility or hat, if you will, but it makes it a little more difficult. Giving Harrison Barnes $18 million, how are you going to find 25, 30 for Draymond Green? Probably still going to end up back with Golden State. The Kyrie Irving thing, he is the big name here, and obviously he came to Dallas in the trade. It did not work. He and Luka just didn't seem to fit. The team couldn't win games. Yet still, if you go over to DraftKings right now, Irving's odds, where he will take his next minute, if you will, in the NBA, Dallas is still a heavy, heavy favorite at minus 400. Sounds like Kyrie Irving kind of wants out of Dallas. Lakers are the second odds-on favorite team, plus 550. Now, I don't know how this would happen, but Phoenix is plus 600. So, my gosh, if Irving went to the Valley of the Sun, you would have Booker. You'd have Booker, you'd have Durant, you'd have Beal, you'd have Ayton, and you'd have Kyrie Irving. If you don't win the NBA title with those five, it's hopeless. Miami is plus 1,000 for Kyrie Irving. Still a little surprised. I guess the issue is fitting him in. Kyrie Irving has been difficult to fit in almost everywhere. Didn't work in Brooklyn, didn't work in Boston, didn't work in Dallas. I could get everybody. You just want to total up talent. You want to load up on guys. Just roll the basketball out there. We'll figure it out. Not that easy, man. Not that easy at all. And you look at the two NBA final teams, Denver, they've got one true stud and certainly a Robin to Jokic's Batman. They got Jamal Murray. And then they have good pieces around it. You look at Miami. You have Jimmy Butler. The Robin there is Bam Adebayo. And then it's a bunch of guys. Now, that was just 1 year. That was just one NBA Finals. But we've seen a lot of these dream teams not really work. It's not as easy. When Miami was doing it with Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade and LeBron James, nobody else was doing it. We'd seen it with Boston with Pierce and Garnett, and that crew. And it worked. It worked great. Ray Allen. But they were the only team doing it. In Miami, they were the only team doing it. Now you have 4 or 5 teams that are trying to do it. And it's not as easy. And we're seeing a lot more of the movement. We're seeing a lot more embracing of the three name. And oftentimes it's not because it's a great system fit. It's just the idea of, hey, throw these guys on the court. It'll work out, right? So we'll see with Kyrie Irving where he ends up. But beginning tonight, free agency does begin 6 o'clock Eastern. Worth noting, we talk about the James Harden possibility, the Damian Lillard possible trade. If a trade market develops, that really changes the market for all of these guys and where they kind of end up. Let's go to item number 2, and we are not done with spending money just yet. NHL Free Agency will begin this weekend. It actually starts tomorrow at noon Eastern. Now, just like the NBA, the NHL is not really loaded with great names. I was looking at a ranking of the top 25 names available. And one of them had like Ryan O'Reilly. Like, woo. Orlov with the Boston Bruins. That's a good defenseman, Dmitry Orlov. You got Tyler Bertuzzi of the Bruins. Vlad Tarasenko is available with the Rangers. Patrick Kane, who's going to have a hip surgery or a knee surgery? He's one of the top names. Frederik Andersen in net. He's kind of attractive. Situation there, though, is Anderson's with Carolina, and Carolina has like over $20 million in cap space. So they can keep him. You see Kane there. You see O'Reilly. That's Matt Dumba there of the Minnesota Wild. So it's not a great class of options with free agency. I mentioned the cap space in Carolina. They're over $20 million. A couple of other teams with a lot of money to spend in NHL free agency. Arizona, which, that makes sense. They've been tanking for, 2-3 years now. Detroit, also a team that could make a splash. Detroit is not a playoff team right now. The Eastern Conference has proven so difficult for the Detroit Red Wings. But they had a couple of free agents. Maybe they make that move. They got a lot of money that they can spend. Some other teams with money: Seattle, Nashville, Chicago, Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's got like $15 million bucks. So those would be some of the big spenders if they chose to spend. Now, the NHL may be a lot like the NBA too on another front. We may in the NHL, Erik Karlsson, who just won the Norris Trophy with San Jose, he could be on the move. His contract is hell. I mean, his contract's like $11 million bucks a season, which is silly in the NHL, especially for a guy in his mid-30s. But he might be on the move. William Nylander. A lot of smoke coming out of Toronto, that Nylander. Winnipeg is also a team to pay attention to. You might remember earlier in the week, they traded Pierre-Luc Dubois to the LA Kings. Well, they're probably not done. Connor Hellebuck, the goaltender, could be on his way out. Mark Sheffley of the Winnipeg Jets, he could also be traded. So those are things to follow. Again, that's on the trade market. Free agent market kicking off tomorrow at noon Eastern. We go from free agency in the NBA, free agency in the NHL, and we go to item number 3 on our 5 things that will matter here on the Better Sports Network. Let's go to baseball, and let's talk about some shoulders that could shape the NL West. Talked about Clayton Kershaw the other day. Well, Clayton Kershaw could miss some time for the LA Dodgers. The Dodgers coming out yesterday and saying that the left shoulder is inflamed with Clayton Kershaw. They are probably going to have an MRI today. The Dodgers are set to be in Kansas City. They're traveling from Denver. The expectation is we'll get an MRI on Kershaw just to make sure. I mean, when you're his age and you've thrown as many pitches and as many innings as Clayton Kershaw, you check out the arm. Now, I said this earlier in the week, and I still believe this. He probably goes on the IL, even if this is just inflammation. And the reason why is because the Dodgers have committed to the idea of Clayton Kershaw is 24 to 26 starts a year. And Clayton Kershaw is like pretty well maxed out with 6 innings. I mean, even the other night, he throws 6 innings, allows 1 hit and no runs at Coors Field. They pulled him out. Now the shoulder was kind of barking a bit, but I think his next start is scheduled to be against Pittsburgh. I don't think he makes that start. And I think it's very easy to sit Clayton Kershaw through the All-Star break. I think Arias is set to return this weekend against Kansas City. So you naturally just activate him. You put Kershaw on the IL. I think that happens. Interestingly enough, Clayton Kershaw is currently number 2 on the NL Cy Young board, which I think is a terrible, terrible pick. The odds are fine, plus 425, but he's not going to throw enough innings. He's not going to make enough starts. People are going to go with something fresh and new. So I don't like the plus 425 on Kershaw, but he is number 2 in those NL odds. Zach Gallen is at plus 165 to win the NL Cy Young. Now, I said the shoulders that could decide the NL West. We have another shoulder injury in the National League West, and that's in Arizona. And it's not with Zach Gallen, it's with Corbin Carroll, the Rookie of the Year candidate, who right now is, what are his odds? Minus 450 for NL Rookie of the Year. Minus 450. Corbin Carroll left yesterday's loss to Tampa Bay with a sore right shoulder. Now, Arizona is expressing very little concern. In fact, they aren't even ordering, at least they said yesterday, that they weren't going to need an MRI on Corbin Carroll. So maybe he's back in the lineup tonight, may miss a game or 2, but right now they're telling us he's fine. So let's hope so, fingers crossed. He's having a great year. I mentioned he's in the NL starting lineup. Corbin Carroll, 24 for 26 on stolen base attempts this year. Having a super year. He is minus 450 again for that NL Rookie of the Year. Number 2 in the NL is Elly De La Cruz, plus 400. Now, if you're into this futures market, getting Elly De La Cruz at plus 400, I'm not saying Corbin Carroll doesn't deserve it. I mean, right now, Corbin Carroll, maybe not unanimously, but would be very close to winning the NL Rookie of the Year. But I say this all the time. Folks, we got half the season to go. And we see a shoulder injury with Corbin Carroll. If he were to miss with any injury, if he misses a month with that injury, those odds are terrible. That's going minus 450 at this point is just a boneheaded wager. So don't do it. If you have to wager on the NL Rookie of the Year, go to a place where you can make some money. Go to Ellie De La Cruz. Or, I mean, the NL is loaded. Uri Perez with Miami. You can go that direction. As for the NL West, currently the Arizona Diamondbacks still in first place. They are 2 games up on the LA Dodgers. San Francisco is 2.5 games back. Check out the divisional odds. I was looking at the futures today over at DraftKings. The Dodgers are still a heavy favorite to win the NL West. They are listed at minus 175 right now. San Francisco, who's in third place, actually has lower odds than Arizona, who's in first place. So again, the Dodgers head and shoulders above the rest of the NL West, minus 175. San Francisco is plus 360. Arizona is plus 380. So right now, that's a first place team halfway through the year that is plus 380. That is the third pick in their division. Dodgers in Kansas City tonight. They will be in the Midwest all weekend. Arizona is out to Southern California to take on that other team in LA, taking on the LA Angels tonight. That is your weekend set for Arizona. Now, speaking of series for the weekend, let's go to item number 4. Couple of big series taking place this week, and both series involving first place versus second place. Let's start in the National League East. Beginning tonight, Miami Marlins are on the road in Atlanta for the first of 3, and yes, indeed, the Marlins are in second place. Now, they're what? 6 games back of the Atlanta Braves? Take 2 out of 3 here, maybe get a sweep, and all of a sudden we got a heck of a race in the NL East. Tonight, 7:20, Saturday, 4:10, and Sunday is 1:35. Sunday's pitching matchup. Last year's Cy Young winner, Sandy Alcantara, going up against the guy who could win it this year, Spencer Strider. So that's probably your best pitching matchup. That's Sunday in Atlanta, 1:35. Should note on Saturday, Uri Perez, who's like been unstoppable in the month of June. He is pitching against Charlie Morton for that 4:10 start. Speaking of odds, Atlanta is currently minus 2,000 to win the NL East. Miami is plus 1,700. Update on Luis Ariz. He is now hitting .392 as the Marlins enter this series in Atlanta. Again, 7:20 for game 1. Now, the other big showdown that we've got in baseball this weekend is second place Houston on the road at first place Texas. Yes, the Lone Star State battle. Astros currently 5 back of Texas. Start times for the weekend, 8:05 tonight, 4:05 tomorrow, and then Sunday is at 2:35. Pitching tonight for the Astros, Ronel Blanco. Pitching tomorrow for the Astros, Hunter Brown. Pitching Sunday for the Astros, to be determined. I know the Astros were everybody's pick in the AL West coming into this season. They are in second place. They're 5 games back. It's kind of remarkable they are only 5 games back. Seriously. They've had injuries. They're without Yordan Alvarez. Their pitching staff is a bunch of rookies. Guys like Ronel Blanco. It's kind of surprising they're only 5 games back. Texas is your current favorite, minus 120 to win the AL West. Houston is plus 145. So a couple of big divisional showdowns. One in Atlanta, one in Arlington, Texas. Keep you busy on your 4th of July weekend. A lot of good baseball, first place versus second place there. Finally, our 5th item that will matter was talking about the All-Star game in Seattle earlier. Remember, there's also a home run derby during All-Star week, and that's going to be in Seattle. That's the night before. So that'll be Monday night, July 10th. And yesterday, we got word from Vlad Jr. that he is back. He is coming back to the home run derby. Now, why is this important? Well, the last time Vlad Guerrero was in the home run derby was way back in 2019. That's when the All-Star game was in Cleveland. And he was a part of the home run derby. Now, he did lose. Pete Alonso won the overall home run derby. But Vlad Guerrero Jr. at that 2019 home run derby in Cleveland had a record-setting night on two fronts. Let's take a look 4 years ago in Cleveland.
See where you end up, but boy, you're dealing with a guy that's absolutely on fire.
And let's give batting practice pitchers a lot of credit in this derby. They know exactly where they want pitches to be thrown.
Tex.
He might be getting to 28. Here we go. We could be watching history tonight in Cleveland, boys and girls. Oh, my goodness.
Scoreboard watching. 28. Next one breaks the record.
That's got a chance. There's the record. 29.
30. Did that one get over at the end? Did he get two? Vladimir Guerrero. We got 28 on the board, which would tie Josh Hamilton for most in a round. And now it's 29. He breaks the home run derby record for home runs in a round. I never thought we'd see it.
And that record still stands in 2023. 29 homers in a single round. Now, I said two records. Vlad hit a total of 91 home runs in that home run derby in Cleveland. So he's coming back. He has not been able to participate in a home run derby for a variety of reasons, COVID being one of them. I think he had a wrist injury last season. So he announced that he will be back, seeing if he can take his record even above and beyond. Now, Julio Rodriguez, because the game's in Seattle, Rodriguez has already come out and said he's in. I think they still take a total of 8. I put together a wish list, and I am not an all-star home run derby guy. I mostly ignore it. I may watch like 4 seconds of it. But if I were to put a wish list together for the home run derby, I'm adding Pete Alonso because, he's the champ. He's always up there winning. Aaron Judge, who's not healthy, but if he were healthy, I want Aaron Judge there. So I got Judge, Alonso. We'll throw Vlad and Julio in there since we got to have Ohtani. Got to have Acuna. And then my 2 wild cards would be Jorge Soler, who hits moonshots, and then Kyle Schwarber, because all Kyle Schwarber does is hit home runs. I looked at it before the show. Almost 40% of the hits that Kyle Schwarber has this whole year have ended up beyond the wall. Almost 40%. Shohei Ohtani, who leads baseball in home runs, he's got 26, maybe more than that, 28. Shohei Ohtani is below 30%. I think he's like 29% of his hits have gone over the wall. And Schwarber's hitting like 180. He's been terrible this year. I don't care how many home runs you hit. You're terrible if you're hitting 180. But when almost 40% of your hits have landed over the wall, I want you in the home run derby. So I don't know if he'll be there, but that would be my wish list if I were putting a derby together. Again, that's July 10th. That is the Monday before they get going in Seattle with the All-Star game on Tuesday. Okay, those are the 5 things that will matter going into your holiday weekend. We have got one more segment to go. We got a pack break to give you. 1991 Score Pinnacle. Back to the glory days. Over 30 years ago, this package and pack will see light for the first time in 32 years. Join me for the fun coming up next on the Better Sports Network.
I think that you have to go with the Jaguars here. I typically don't go for odds that are negative 160 because there's a very limited return on that. But after bringing in Calvin Ridley, after having another year under Doug Peterson, they're going to take this division. The Titans, as bad as they are, somehow always find a way into contention for the division. But I think that the suspension announced yesterday of right tackle Nicholas Petit-Frere really, really hurts their offensive line. They already had a weak offensive line, and now they only have one other guy on their depth chart at right tackle. Indy and Houston are both coming in with rookie quarterbacks, and they have a bunch of inexperienced pieces. So although I think that they can be good in the future, I don't think that you can put money on anybody but the Jaguars. Duval!
Good to have you back with us on the 5-pack. Final segment on this Friday, and then you can jump into your weekend. Hope you got some travel plans. Be safe out there, not only with the traveling, but also the lighting and shooting of explosives. That's also something to be safe with. Before we get out of here, we got to get our pack break. After all, the show's called the 5-Pack, so we got to do a pack break. Today, for the first time ever on this program, we've got some 1991 Score Pinnacle football cards. This is the new and improved version of Score football. Score still made regular football cards, but this was, hey, let's get into that big rich guy market. So here was their entry into that rich guy market. And as I noted, these cards have a lot of empty space. We start with one of our favorites from the era, just because every time you see this guy, he looks like Andre the Giant playing football. Kevin Mack of the Cleveland Browns. Now, again, the shoulder pads. Are you kidding me? Are those shoulder pads even legal anymore? Like, why don't we? Can there be at least one running back who puts on shoulder pads like this? Look at those things. I mean, he's twice as big as he normally is. But again, you see the pinnacle. Like, all of this just dead space. Like, nothing here. Nothing. Give me another photo. Give me something. I don't know. Too much just empty space on these cards. So we start with Kevin Mack. Up next, Bills linebacker Shane Collin. Not as popular as, say, Cornelius Bennett with the Bills, or certainly Bruce Smith. Hell, even Mark Kelso, the guy who had the shell on his helmet. But Shane Collin, pretty good linebacker. I think he was out of Penn State, because aren't all linebackers? Yeah, out of Penn State. All linebackers are out of Penn State. The Magic Man. Man, this guy, to me, growing up, he was the only good Packer quarterback from like 1975 to 1995. The Magic Man, Don Majkowski. Now, the Magic eventually ran out, and the Packers had to go with Brett Favre. But there was about a 2-3 year stretch where the Magic Man was pretty good. Pretty good. And like I said, for me, in an era from really following football, say from 87 to, 93, before the Brett Favre days, here was your Green Bay Packer QB. And they called him the Magic Man because, hey, it flipped the name. But he also was known for 2-minute success stories. Had a big drive against the Bears. I think that was kind of his coming out party. And the Packers were bad for so many decades. And then he kind of got them close to 500, obviously. Favre blew the door down. Now, this is an interesting card. Quinn Early is the card, but this is the problem. We've got vertical and horizontal conflicting here. So do I hold the card like this, or is the card like this? Now, Score Pinnacle is telling me hold it like this, Kyle, but doesn't that, it looks terrible now. You gotta hold it like that. By the way, the back of these cards, and I've never heard of this next player, Tunch Ilkin? Tunch Ilkin? Do Steelers lifers even know who Tunch Ilkin is? Here are the backs. I'll give you the Tunch Ilkin back. This isn't a good rep because there's no stats for Tunch Ilkin. Indiana State. Here, let's read up on Tunch Ilkin. I will give Pinnacle some credit here. They got a big write-up, even on a guy like Tunch Ilkin. Let's see here. Turkish-born Tunch is the heart of the Steelers' offensive line. A technically solid lineman who was selected for the Pro Bowl in 88-89. Well, maybe it's just my fault. He is among the NFL's best pass protectors and doubles as a tight end in short yardage situation. Tunch also is Pittsburgh's most experienced player and offensive captain. Okay, I guess I'm the idiot. I didn't know about Tunch Ilkin, a Pro Bowler. Yeah, I apologize, Tunch. Heath Sherman of the Philadelphia Eagles. Check out those collars. See those padded collars? Don't see those much anymore, do you? Okay, wow. Pinnacle's going to get wild with us here. A rookie card, and when you were a rookie, you got a green football card. Aaron Carver. So when you're Heath Sherman, you get boring black. When you're a rookie, Aaron Craver. Did I say Craver? Yeah, Aaron Craver. You get this nice rookie. And I got another rookie. Roman Pfeiffer, outside linebacker for the LA Rams at the time. Check out Roman. Just got drafted, baby. Dream come true. He played here in St. Louis. Might have been a part of that Super Bowl winning team. Wow, this is a card that if you pulled it in 1991, you're like, wow, I got the next Joe Montana. But you pull it in 2023, And all I can remember about this guy is his dad was overbearing. He was never allowed to eat chocolate like his whole life. And he burned out of the NFL in like a second. Todd Maranovich. He was going to be Montana kids. This guy, Todd Maranovich. Man, he was going to be a legend. Left-handed legend. Wasn't worth a damn. A game winner. We have no inserts in Pinnacle. We do have subsets. Here's one of them. Barry Sanders. This might be worth a bit. $2, $3 maybe. A Barry Sanders game winner. We follow that up with another game winner, Neil Anderson. He was one of my favorites back in the day. Loved Neil Anderson with the Bears. He and Thurman Thomas. And then we get back to our usual Charles Mann, who, if you're a Washington Redskins fan, Charles Mann, he wrecked things up front. Pretty decent cards. Like, hey, you get full color, so that was nice. Card stock is pretty thick. Set's not too bad here. Like I said, I got one of my favorites, Kevin Mack. I got the Magic Man, Don Mikowski. We learned Tunch Ilkin was actually better than Kyle Elfrink thought. We got Todd Maranovich, who was like the original Ryan Leaf. We got a game winner, Barry Sanders. Can you do better than Barry Sanders in 91? Got some rookie cards. Pretty good pack. Gonna have to get more of those Pinnacles. Okay, that will do it for us on a Friday. Again, we thank Ernie Acosta, our producer. We thank you for joining us here on the 5-Pack. Have a great weekend, a safe weekend, and enjoy the sports world and enjoy the Better Sports Network. We'll see you next week right here on BSN.